With me this evening is Jack Mc Cracken from Belfast, poet, songwriter, musician, on the road.
In the depths of the winter at 5 below zero.
And we're talking now to Jack. Welcome, Jack.
Well, welcome, Paul.
Talking about this CD of yours, Road Diaries. And there's a track on it here that interests me called Lost, Strange Happenings. Tell us a wee bit about it, Jack.
Yeah, Strange Happenings at Wirrawa. Wirrawa is, well, I'm quite sure a lot of the people, your listeners, would be aware of. The other name is Lake George, and it's about 100 miles, 100k out of Canberra, going towards Goulburn. It's about halfway between Goulburn and Canberra, and it's always had a somewhat macabre reputation. Strange things have happened out there over a significant number of years. People have gone missing. There's been deaths. It's also rumoured, and it's probably a proven scientific fact, that there is a lake in Canada, or some people would call it Canada. Whenever that lake's full, Lake George empties, and when Lake George fills, the lake in Canada / Canada empties. So it's a strange place altogether.
And think of my loved ones who waited at home. And stillness lay by the face of the waters, under the canopy of the star-scattered sky. There, in the breast of the world's great being, the chill of the mountain air in silence fills and gently falls.
So, Jack, this piece, Lost, it's a strange story of a truck, and something happens with the evening in question. Is the driver of the truck a spirit, or
No.
did he see something?
It has been rumoured that there's been strange gatherings and happenings out around the Lake George vicinity for quite a number of years, decades, in fact. What precisely those gatherings are, I'm not really aware of. But the truck driver is, in actual fact, a flesh and blood truck driver. It's not a spirit. It actually is a truck driver who does see something.
The thing that he saw is can you describe it anyway? Maybe what he might have saw.
It's really just in the actual poem itself, or the piece itself.
Did you take a film crew from Scandinavia out there to film something?
Yeah. What happened was that particular piece is quite well known in and around the district, Lost, and somewhere along the line, a Polish film crew who were doing from memory, it was a syndicated program on ghosty things around the world, got to hear of this, and they got in touch with me, and we went out to the shores of Lake George to film I suppose dark things in the night on the shores of this strange lake, to the sound of this particular piece, Lost. A whole production crew went out. They did the filming and left. But they were going around the world taking spooky places. The other two places, three places, from memory, that they went in Australia was Junee, Monte Cristo, the house. I myself went out to Monte Cristo, but I never saw anything at Monte Cristo.
Cry again and again and again. Deep is the grave and gone is the gavel, the first and the last, betrayed in its travel. Deep is the grave and gone is the gavel, the first and the last, betrayed in its travel. Deep is the grave and gone.
You certainly know how to tell a story, Jack. And the macabre is coming through quite clearly in Lost. Do you ever watch anything by Edgar Allan Poe?
A little bit, but from my own experience, real life's much more interesting than fiction.
You mentioned it before there about Monte Cristo at Junee. And also you were talking about the Rocks, because the Rocks has a lot of history and strange things, I'm sure, would be presented around that place.
Yeah, the film crew, the Polish guys said that they got a real horrible feeling at the Rocks in Sydney. There was one particular place, as far as I can gather, after a little bit of investigation, it was some sort of punishment cell. And they all said they got an inordinately cold feeling when they went into that place. One very similar to the experience they got over on the other side of the country in WA. Same sort of feeling. Incredibly cold, merciless, not nice at all. A bit like Dante's hell, where it's not hot and fiery, but it's icy cold.
That cold feeling that people would have, there's some sort of unforgiveness, or there's something there that needs to be addressed. Well,
and that particular piece, Lost, but the ice on the waters and the great being and the stillness and the settling. There's much more between heaven and earth than we're aware of.
In the ethos of their goings on, but from their night no day will dawn, till he who risen from their midst in blood doth be, hath marked the price and paid the cost, and found the gavel that he hath lost.
You're tuned to Crack with Mac on Highland FM. This is Paul McCann, the host of the show. And this evening we're talking to Jack Mc Cracken from Belfast, now residing in Queanbeyan, or close enough to Canberra, he would say. We're finding out a little bit about Jack's songs and poetry and stuff. So, Jack, leaping from Lost, from the album Road Diaries, we're going to talk about a track on your first album, The Spinner, called Tale of the Tinker. Would you like to just give us a wee rundown there on what inspired you to do that one?
Well, unlike Lost, Tale of the Tinker is purely fiction. It's about a young fella, tinker, one of the travelling folk. He falls in love, really, with someone who what would be euphemistically called a young lady above a station. The parents don't like it. She's really quite shocked when he says he wants to marry her, and she's so shocked actually that she shocks him in turn, and the temper gets the better of him, and he knifes her. He kills her, stabs her repeatedly. He's sent before the beak, and he's sent away for life, 100 years. And he goes into a place, a charming little spot called Crumlin Road. If folks, your listeners, think the likes of that place out at Goulburn's bad, you want to take a look at Crumlin Road. My God, the emanations coming out of that place, horrible. They've actually shut it down. It was so bad.
I used to walk past the Crumlin Road prison on my way to the Scouts in Donegal Street every day as a boy, and I used to look into the dark passages and wonder what was going on inside those cloistered buildings.
And one of the things in the when the particular song or poem reaches its climax, this fella's Sean, he's been put away behind those walls, and some of the dark forebodings that you imagined start coming to play, because the lady comes back in spirit and warns him that as what you did to me, someone is going to do to you. And soon, Sean, soon, enchanted as the flowers strewn upon a maiden's grave. That's Crumlin Road. And he gets his comeuppance because as the wheel turns, the balance must be reached. And as a spiritual being, I do believe that in life the balance always shall be reached, either in this life or in the next. There's no free lunch.
I think that's karma, and good or bad, whatever you do will come back on you. We often go through life thinking that we can get away with stuff, but there's no getting away from anything, is there, Jack?
It sooner or later comes back to us. If not this time round, the next time round. And I should say, I'm not an advocate of the Eastern traditions, because I'm not of the East. I'm of the West, and I'm pretty well immersed in my own traditions, and we teach the same thing.
I think today we're very aware of many cultures, the way things are in the world. Diversity is certainly something that we have to tolerate in one way or another. And I'd like to just thank you for sharing your poems, your stories, your inspirations, Jack, with the listeners. And we'll just have a listen now to Tale of the Tinker. And I'm sure that the listener will be able to get the picture of what you've just said.
November's morning on the road to Dungannon, as the winds blew cold and black, a son was born in a caravan to the wife of a travelling man. They named him Sean. He grew straight and strong, was never taught right from wrong, and his temper was quick, and his hair was long, and he never knew right from wrong.
So he traveled the land in his caravan and never cared he. Till one night in Larne, when he met a girl whose wife he wanted her to be. Tinker. She was a lady. She says no 3 times 3. So he took his knife and he stabbed her twice, for she wouldn't be his wife. Before the court, the very next day, the tinker, he had to appear. And the judge was old, already turned Sean cold. He was sentenced to 100 years. Crumlin Road, your cells are cold. Your winds blow through my veins. When I've murdered a girl, I'm doomed to rot here the rest of my days.
Jack Mc Cracken's Tale of the Tinker. Very haunting and spooky song there, isn't it? But Crumlin Road Prison and the Tinker, who Sean by name, Gypsy by fame, who killed the young lady who would not betroth him. I wonder how much that is true today to people who may be spending time in prison. The jilted lover. The mind certainly boggles. Next up, before we get back into the interview with Jack, I just want to play a track from his latest album, which is Road Diaries. And the song I want to play for you, I love it myself. The Ones They Didn't Want is the title of the song. And we might have a bit of a word about that song too later. Let's have a listen now to Jack Mc Cracken from the Road Diaries.
We're the ones they didn't want, the rebels, the dreamers, and the damned. So from every corner of the globe we came upon this land. They bruised us, but they couldn't break us. So they cast us adrift in the storm. Oh, but there in the dark, we swore in our hearts that one day we'd prove them wrong. So we cut the cold, mined the gold, laid the tracks and dug the roads, built our cities, worked our mills, drew our pay, raised our kids, asking no favors, taking no lip, spawns from the ghetto with a prison ship, building a nation prosperous and proud, with the strength in our backs and the sweat on our brows. Darwin to Melbourne, Sydney to Perth, opening the waterways and taming the earth, trying our best in the young growing land, give the children the chances that we never had. Humping our bluey through the Queensland cane, riding the rattlers into New South Wales, building our banks, forging our steel, seizing our dreams and making them real. They didn't want rebels, dreamers, and the damned. So from every corner of the globe we came upon this land. Oh, they bruised us, but they couldn't break us. So they cast us adrift in the storm. There in the dark, we swore in our hearts we would prove those bastards wrong. Our wheels turn full circle, so let's shout it aloud. The laughter is once, but they're not laughing now. It's branded as outcasts, written off as no good. This country took us when no one else would, and it gave us some respect, and it gave us some pride, it gave us the chance to make something of our lives. This land is my land, so be certain and clear. If you're gonna badmouth Australia, you better not do it here. We are ones they didn't want. The rebels, the dreamers, and the damned, also from every corner of the globe.
On the album Road Diaries, Jack, you've got a song that is called "The Ones They Didn't Want." Tell me a wee bit what inspired that one.
Well, I think it's this is so typical of so many people who have arrived in this wonderful country of ours, Australia. Basically kicked out, not wanted by the places where we were born for whatever reason.
We were just saying before that last track about cultural diversity and about people who would come to Australia from other cultures and either fit in or you ship out, basically.
Yes.
That's what I'm getting from the song, Jack.
You see, absolutely. When I was in the Northern Hemisphere early last year, and it's relative to Australia, it's an absolute shambles up there. There's so many things going on. It's quite worrying, and the overriding emotion that I felt when I arrived back on Australian soil was, thank God I'm back in a stable country, because whatever's happened here with regards to the cultural mix, it's worked, and it is working. It's not perfect, but compared to pretty much anywhere else I've ever been, and I've been to a lot of places, this place is it's almost magical, and it's something to be absolutely nurtured, cared for, worked on, improved, because it really is magical. And one of the things I believe one of the duties that we all have here, without standing on a soapbox, is that we come here, we I suppose take the best of the cultures that we came from and leave the nasty bits behind, so we can all add to this culture, which I believe the new world is rising in Australia. It's one of the countries which it is rising.
My last trip to Ireland, people asked me where I was from, and I said Australia, and they kind of looked at me and said, you know what, you're the hope of the old world. And I said, how do you mean, like? And they said, well, look, you've got out there Hindus living with Christians, and Arabs living with Jews, and Catholics living with Protestants, and you aren't at war. You're showing the old world how to do it. And I thought about that, and he had a point. Why is it when they leave their country and come here, they can get along okay? It seems...
It's just the cultural baggage that we build up over centuries. One of the wonderful things about Australia, well, modern day Australia, is that we're just not old enough to build up these old edifices of hatreds. With regards to the Aboriginal people, of course, that's a different story altogether. And over the number of years, I've been interacting more and more with Aboriginal people.
We were talking earlier on about Shane Hard.
Yes,
he's
wonderful
quite
musician. Yeah,
and one of your songs, Jack, Santos Girls, that you do live. Would you tell us how Shane gets a mention?
Last year at Yakandanda Folk Festival, we were going to Yakandanda I volunteer down there. It's a wonderful community. And Shane was saying, he was saying that there's not enough pirate songs and stories in Australia.
Like as in Captain Jack Sparrow kind of stories.
Yeah, overall, yes, the whole lot, the whole 9 yards, yeah.
Because you were a seafaring man, you were a mariner.
Well, I've had some experience of that, just small experience.
But not as a pirate, like just as a...
Oh, good Lord, no.
There's a place up there in heaven every cowboy knows. If that cow has been a good cowboy, then yon's the place he'll go, where he'll ride no silver stallion or wear no big white hat, but his cares will fall away in the whirl of the Santos girls. There was never much to do with the money, how we paid our friends and families farewell, though following the ways of the wanderers and a life where the big sea swell. It was everything to do with adventure and the lustful life that flowed in our veins, as the cares fell away in the whirl of the Santos girls. There was boys coming in from Arklow, there was boys coming in from Baghdad, from Caracas down to Rio. Yeah, believe the sort of time that we had. When Lick started banging on the squeeze box, we'd go whipping up our rebels for roar, as we downed the rum, stowed the guns and went sailing back to the war. Where the skippers, crooked bastards, the engineers were thick, and the food was little better than cow shite, and you usually felt you feel you'd been licked. So you swear that the trip was your last one, and you planned out your shoreside track. And for some unfathomable reason, we kept on going back. There was boys coming in from Arklow, there was boys coming in from Baghdad, from Caracas down to Rio. You'll not believe the sort of time that we had. When Lecky started banging on the squeeze box, we'd go whipping up our rebels for roar, as we downed the rum, stowed the guns and went sailing back to the war. Big dawn, scally sunk with the rest of the rust bucket dregs. It was said far and wide that the best of us had dribbled down our mama's leg. See pig swill cuddles and the long hunt, black jacket down and the slug, whose cares fell away in the whirl of the Santos girls. There was boys coming in from Arklow, there was boys coming in from Baghdad, from Caracas down to Rio. You'll not believe the sort of time that we had. And when Lecky started banging on the squeeze box, we go whipping up our rebels for roar, as we downed the rum, stowed the guns and went sailing back to the war.
Well, the thing about the Irish and the Celts in general, if you look at our homelands, all the Celts, without exception, we've all been pushed to the perimeters, the peripheries. I mean, in the likes of the British Isles, if it pushed us any further, we'd be in Coney Island. We'd be Americans. In fact, a lot of people say maybe we should be Americans.
And when you look at things that drove people out of Ireland then, like the famine, our greatest export being our people who brought their songs and their music and their poetry and their heritage to other countries, things sometimes happen for a reason, as bad as it might seem. There's a reason behind what goes on. I think some of the people who brought their first songs to Australia, the bush ballads and the jigs and the reels, and then you had characters over the years like, you know, Ned Kelly and Captain Starlight, and these were what we look at today as icons. Some people look at them as a good guy or a bad guy. You can make your own decision.
I know some of the chaps at the Irish Embassy in Canberra aren't particularly enamoured with Mr. Ned.
Well, you know, look, like him or hate him, you know, he's got this image that a lot of Australians seem to cling to.
He is, yeah.
And wherever he came from and whatever he did, history tells the story. And I think a lot of Irish songs seems to sympathise with that kind of genre.
Well, yeah, it's disadvantaged people, you know, as I say, pushed to the perimeters by the establishment, ending up down here, ending up in the States, again pushed to the perimeters. The Aboriginal people were pushed to the perimeters, so of course there was a lot of interaction between the outcasts.
And a wee bit closer to home, a song on the Spinner album, The Working Class People of Belfast, we're touching a similar kind of tangent where Catholic and Protestant people found common ground. They had, let's call it, one oppressor.
Misled and betrayed by church and chapel, by business and by government of every hue. The politicians do the shouting, but we do the fighting. The suffering, the bleeding, and the dying. They tell us fight to the finish, but it's ourselves we destroy. From the squalor of the Shankill to the squalor of the Falls. A people divided by a working class blindness. Why in God's name won't we open our eyes? And we are the working class people of Belfast, and together we can take our place in the sun. For so much unites us, so little divides us. And one day our song will be sung. And it's a bread-laying living or rot in a prison, or be driven to emigrate from the land of our birth. Whole generations of decent working people, abused, betrayed, then abandoned. We worked all a man's mills, toiled in other men's factories, crippled by poverty, proud and Catholic alike, packed into slums, the shame of all Europe. And still, it's ourselves that we fight. And we are the working class people of Belfast, and together we could take our place in the sun. For so much unites us, so little divides us. and one day our song will be sung. But down through the ages, the bigotry and the hatred has poisoned and tainted every life in our land. No orange, no green, no tolerance, no vision, no hope, no dignity, no future. So out of this hell, let us rise and unite. For there's only one struggle, and there's only one fight. No more exploitation, division, and blame. We're the working class people, and we're all just the same. We are the working class people of Belfast, and together we can take our place in the sun. For so much unites us, so little divides us, and one day our song will be sung. And we are the working class people of Belfast, and together we can take our place in the sun. For so much unites us, so little divides us, and one day our song will be sung.
Isn't it? I spent some time over the break with the guys touring here at the minute, Scott Cook. A marvelous troubadour, singer, guitarist, teller of stories. Scott's from Canada. He's been on tour here. He's been doing stuff with Liz Frencham in Victoria, and he's been going all over. If you ever get a chance to see him, please do see. You won't be disappointed. But Scott he doesn't drink anymore because he indulged a little bit too much a number of years ago. So on doctor's orders, he can't drink. But what he was saying was a pal of his wrote this song, and I can't remember the exact title of it was, but it was really hustle. It's a hustle. Don't screw with my hustle. Everybody's on a hustle. And with regards to the working class people of Belfast, unfortunately the working class people of Belfast, the prods and the tigs, have been hustled by these bastards. They've been hustled. They've been conned. We're busy fighting, beating the hell out of each other when we should be joining together and saying, well, who really is the enemy here? It's not the guy in the Shankill, it's not the guy in the Falls, because we're on the same boat. It's the guys put us there and keep us there.
And to be a songwriter and a poet and a storyteller, you're leaving a legacy not just for today, but for generations to come. And that particular song does tell a lovely story. And you've hit the nail right on the head, where they've been betrayed.
Betrayed. Utterly betrayed. By
those people who usurped the good working people.
Yep.
Who walked around in bare feet with varicose veins and worked round the clock for their master, who didn't care what kind of house they were living in or what kind of food they were eating. And Catholics and Protestants looked at each other. They had some common ground in all of that. And I think, Jack, it takes a brave songwriter and a brave poet to write stuff like that.
I think it's important that. I mean, it's to me, it's what you do. I mean, somebody would say, how do you know you've given a good performance? I know a number of people say, well, I haven't made a mistake. Well, to me, that's relevant. We were talking just before we went in there about how we share this whole idea of keeping it loose, keeping it give it room, let it breathe. I personally don't really care if there's a mistake or whatnot. I think it adds to the performance. The real rub comes if you actually move people, hopefully for the good, but not necessarily.
And we were also talking about computers and how technology has taken over, let's say, where musicians used to sit around with a pair of sticks in their hand or a guitar in one hand and maybe a mouth organ in their mouth. Now there's so much software available that people can go on stage with no instruments, just with a computer. And whether that enhances the sound or the performance, I think somehow along the way, musicianship is suffering. It might come a time where people forget how to play the sticks and play the drums or guitar because the computer can do it all.
Well, I think the last time we spoke quite a number of years ago was I learned to sing in Dundrum, where the mountains of Mourne sweep down to the sea, from the old boys who used to come down, particularly from the Castlewellan Mountains. You go into the back room, a couple of kids were invited in. I was one of them, thank goodness. And you learned to sing, you learned to carry the song. There was no computers, there was no technologies, just a lot of drink and a lot of advice. And it was wonderful. And I think, really, with regards to the storytelling and with the way that you carry songs, particularly in the vocal tradition, computers can never take that over. Again, we were talking just before we come on air, a lot of the teachers I had when I was at school, they were poets, the likes of Michael Longley, a number of the Hewitts and whatnot, and they used to ram into you very strongly that if you're going to write about something, wherever humanly possible, write about something that you have direct experience of, because in this magical sort of way it comes through. The audiences ain't stupid. They know if you're trying to hustle them.
I think there's a personal emotion attached because you've written it, you've experienced it. You know, sometimes, Jack, you hear a songwriter and he's performing a song and you have an idea in your head what it's about. But until you actually talk to the songwriter who will tell you what the song is about, you're only guessing.
One of my favourite songwriters' performance is, he's a latter-day Stephen Foster, who was also of Irish descent, by the way. This guy, Jimmy Webb. Jimmy Webb's played in Canberra a number of times, and unfortunately I've never gone to see him.
He wrote 200 songs before he wrote MacArthur Park.
Oh, magnificent. And of course, he's probably best known for MacArthur Park and for a lot of the songs that Glenn Campbell made famous. And of course, the way Glenn Campbell performs them, wonderful productions. I mean, you can't fault them. They really are superb. But there's Jimmy brought out an album, 10 Easy Pieces. It's just him and a piano. Now, I think he'd probably be the first to admit this himself. He's not the best pianist in the world. He's professional, don't get me wrong, but he's not the best in the world. He's certainly not the best singer in the world. But when he sings songs like Galveston, it's just him and the piano, there's something happens. Something happens which takes it into a completely different space. And this is something that computers and technology can never, ever replicate, in my opinion.
It's a lived experience.
Lived experience.
I remember listening to Phil Coulter. He sang, Scorn Not His Simplicity, which he wrote for his boy who was severely handicapped. And Luke Kelly, the late Luke Kelly from the Dubliners, did a version of Scorn Not His Simplicity. Mm-hmm. And he only did one version of it. And they often said to Luke Kelly, could you do another one? And Luke always had the same answer, I did one. And that's as best as I can do. It's a very hard song to sing.
You see, there's a song that...
when nothing's worked out like you planned, and your confidence is all gone, and your pride, your self-respect are in pawn, then something's telling you to reach down, way down, inside. And take a look at who you are, what you've become, and all of the things you could be. When you feel in your bones. The time's come to go home. Then give thanks to the Lord, girl, 'cause you're free. Free from the drifting, the lonesome, and the empty, and the shallowness, and the wasting of a fine life reduced by a whole welter of worthless bullshit, and by people that are full of it. But that's all in the past now. Praise the Lord. 'Cause you got that ticket in your hand, and you're stepping on board, and the miles start speeding by. You're going home. The future's a mystery, the past a mess, and there's a tear of desperation in your eye. Till you find yourself standing back on the street you were born, a lost soul like out of some continental movie, unsure and alone. Then you start seeing places and old familiar faces, and these faces say simply, "Hey girl, welcome home." Then the family comes out, sort of quiet like, and the weans come crowding round, and old friends drop by to share a jar, a story, and a song. Ah, girl, the friendships you yearned for, and the love that you sought, they were waiting for you, right here, all along. And on that first Sunday morning, with family, to church, as the memories of the bad times recede, distant, gone, our heads start to feel a bit like a light bulb that she's finally found the sense to turn on. And that old time religion, Lord, it kicks her like a mule. Raw, no frills, no front, no lies, and no snake oil gurus parading around the place in Gucci shoes. Just some old-fashioned preacher with a love of God shining in his eyes. Then the piano kicks in, and the choir starts to sing. As the congregation, the whole place erupts into song, gospel style. And she stands there glowing in the sweet Sunday morning Detroit light, 'cause she's back in the place she belongs. What she once thought was cornball now seems so natural and right, like nothing's ever been before in the whole of her life. Her family, her people, her future, her roots, never more to roam, 'cause she made it. She made it. Lord, this girl made it home.
In his heart.
Yes.
And it comes through very clearly what you're saying.
Yeah, that was a wee girl I met in New Orleans many years ago, and she used to knock around docks, but she was a real girl. She wasn't a lady of the night, and she had a trinket stall, and she sold the little odds
Bits of jewelry,
bits of jewelry, earrings, that
Yeah.
sort of stuff, trinkets, New Orleans, keepsakes, that sort of stuff. And we got talking to her, and she always said she wanted to go home. She lived way up north, Detroit, and she wanted to go home, but life got in the way, circumstances. I think we're all. I think we can all fall prey to life, to circumstances. We do want to do things, but for some reason the planets don't align. For some reason. But anyway, the next time I was back in New Orleans, I asked around for her.
She's gone.
She'd gone home. She made it.
I think that song can speak for many people, Jack, whether it's Detroit, Belfast, New York, Sydney. If you've been away, people say, oh, I've been away. When you go home, where have you been? Oh, I've been away. They don't want to say where, because there's an attachment, or you have to make an excuse why you went away, or why you've lost your accent, or why you're different when you come back. And the return is a bit for everyone. And it's really nice to be able to talk to you about the album tonight. And we're going to wind up shortly because time is against us. Jack, I just want to thank you for all your time this evening.
Oh, thanks for having us, Paul.
And we'll have
great
to
catch up again after all these
years.
Of these years, actually.
And you'll have to get me a copy of that new album that's coming out soon.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting. You'll fall asleep. Hopefully, that's the idea. But I wrote it, and I can't get through to the end of it. There's a little bit of magical. It's a little bit esoteric.
I'm looking forward to hearing that one. What have you got a title for the album yet?
Yeah, Time Was.
Nice, Jack. Well, we'll wind up now. We're going to have a. Would you like to tell me what your favourite song is of either of the albums that I've got with me this evening?
No, it's hard to say because once you do it, you never really listen to them again. Joggers is always a big hit, but Tamworth, as I say, Tamworth is that's become quite notorious now.
Okay, well, we'll
So
go
they
out.
stopped the show at the Yakandanda last night of the Yakandanda Folk Festival.
Yeah,
My word, it did. For
with-
all the right reasons.
with joggers.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
We'll go out with joggers. And thanks again, Jack, and may the road be kind to you.
And thanks a lot, Paul.
My well-trod paths to tarry deep in bushes dim and dark. I hide on lone commando, out to strike and score a mark. And lie and wait for them I hate. In this my lair I see, but can't be seen until too late. When fall do I, and fury full on them like fate itself I do. For putrid spawn these vermin like a plague spot in our midst, where from sinks of vile iniquity these preverts flaunt their filth. And when they die, I hope they fry forever in the flames and embrace eternal agony in that sewer from whence they came. And they make me sick, these posing pricks who spread this palsied stain, and devoid of manly bearing, smit their pox through swills of shame. But if I had my way this very day, I'd abort them all at birth and wipe every stinking jogger from the face of God's good earth. Jogging through the parkways, on the roads, in the streets, jogging past the boozers where all normal blokes should meet. These flab-free, gutless bastards eat so taut and prim and fit, make a belly filled with beer, look queer. I hate these scrawny gits, so in my lair I've come to snare and square the record straight for every slob who drinks and smokes and weighs in overweight. To bide my time, I work the line and slowly take my pick, then jump a hapless jogger and belt him with a brick. And as down he goes, my juices flows, for my work has just begun. And in opening up my haversack, the best's about to come. As I slash his shoes, steal his shorts, and splash his face with beer, stick a joint of hashish in his gob, and swiftly disappear back to my lair, where from the glare of his worsening situation I call the law on my mobile phone and plant false accusation. How he prevert from the bushes, high on dope and full of piss, exposed himself in a public place and copped a concrete kiss. Thus, by well-trod paths to tarry deep in bushes, dim and dark, through frantic screams of innocence, I chalk up another mark and craft my plans and plot my course and cast an evil eye. So when next you meet a jogger, just be sure and say goodbye.
You're tuned to Crack with Mike on 107.1 on your local radio.